Welcome to a new video. Today, just one day later, we see the actual Williams driving. And as expected, it looks pretty similar to the renderings we've seen yesterday. So first of all, at the nose, we can see a quite wide and boxy nose. And also in other shots, we could see that it's further forward than the front wing, which is no surprise because they had a problem with the crash test, so they just really wanted to make sure to pass it now. Interesting is that we can see the actuator underneath the nose, so it looks like the actuator is not inside the nose but underneath, which is a simpler solution. Also, they adjust the front wing flap angle on the left and on the right. On other teams, which had the actuator in the middle or even in the nose, we could see that they actually adjust the front flap angle with a single hole in the nose, which makes sense because if the mechanism is here, you can adjust it here and you don't need two mechanics, or you don't need one mechanic doing two movements during a pit stop, for example. You just have the single screw adjusting it. But Williams went for the old school way here and is adjusting the flaps on the left and on the right. We can see quite nicely the strake underneath here, so the strakes are allowed again this year. And we can see some details at the end plates now, so a massive horizontal element with a big flip at the side. And we can see this structure at the side and some outwashing elements here. Also interesting curvature of the end plates, and it looks like they also try to create some additional outwash in front of the front wheels already. This time we can see the front suspension a bit more clearly, and as expected, they have a pretty extreme anti-dive geometry, which means the forward leg of the upper wishbone is mounted as high as possible, and the rearward one is mounted as low as pretty much the lower wishbone, we could even say. And now we can also see what they are doing with this pull rod front suspension, about which we talked yesterday already, because now the rearward leg of the upper wishbone and the pull rod is pretty much covering the same space, which means that aerodynamically you only have one element in the way, basically. I mean, outside here they're still on different heights, but overall you can say that the rearward leg could sit in the same wake as the forward element, so there is an aerodynamic advantage there. On the other hand, why do teams do pull or push rod suspensions, and what does it do for the packaging and for the aerodynamics? We can look at this simplified sketch and we can see a pushrod suspension on the left, which means that the pedal box of the chassis, which is the bigger part, is sitting lower. So you obstruct more airflow at the bottom. But the good thing is that you have quite a nice angle for the pushrod and you have the suspension members easy to reach on top of the nose. The pull rod, on the other hand, has the suspension members underneath the nose. The angle of the pull rod is usually not as ideal, and the pedal box is sitting higher. So because the pedal box is sitting higher, you have more airflow underneath. So you obstruct the airflow less underneath the nose and you have more clean flow towards the, for example, start of the floor. So if you ask suspension engineers, they would always choose a push rod over a pull rod first because it's just easier for the kinematics. Usually the angle of the push rod is easier than the pull rod, but mechanically you can always make it work, and in Formula 1 aerodynamic has by far the highest priority, so it's usually always an aerodynamic reason why you choose a pull rod. In the past it was so that the pedal box is sitting higher, so you have more clean flow underneath, and with the Williams we can now see that they actually cover the same space with the pull rod as with the rearward wishbone leg. What else can we see on this picture? We can see that the air inlets are actually bigger than on the Mercedes, as we expected, because the spec sheet of the Williams said that they will use air-to-air intercoolers, whereas we can expect the Mercedes works team to use water-to-air intercoolers, which would explain their smaller air inlets, and the bigger ones on the Williams. On the other hand, we can see a stay for the floorboard, and the floorboards we can't see in this shot, but on other pictures we could see that they have quite a simple design, which is no surprise for a first shakedown, and they can be changed easily. We can also see, not in this picture, but we could see in other shots that they actually run a large shark fin. We can just guess it here. But we see these little winglets at the top of the airbox, which are there to push the shark fin tip vortex in the corners down underneath the rear wing, so it doesn't hit the rear wing. We could see similar designs on the Aston Martin and the Ferrari. And we can see this little vein here at the side, which is there to avoid the cockpit losses from spilling down to the downwashing area. and to keep them up here on the path to guide them underneath the rear wing to the back of the car, so it can exit the car without hitting anything important. Other than that, we can see that the side pods have pretty much the same shape as in the renderings, so we see an undercut area, and we see that this undercut is pretty much gone as soon as we reach the widest part of the side pod, so there's no undercut anymore. We can see it better in other pictures, but in this one here we can just guess that. And it's a similar concept as the Mercedes or the Ferrari, where they have some downwashing side pods, but not all the way down. And they work with some undercut, but not as extreme as the other teams. Williams is quite conservative here, and they try everything to keep the front rear wake outboard. So let's see how that will work for them. So how do you like the new Williams FW48 for the 2026 season? Let me know in the comments below and see you at the next one.